Good. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our new session today. Today we are going to talk about applying to US residency and medical degrees. I'm going to talk first before I introduce our presenters for the day. I'm going to talk about us, Education USA. Education USA is at the US Department of State network of over 430 international students advising center in more than 175 countries and territories. The network promotes US higher education to students around the world by offering accurate, comprehensive, and current information about opportunities to study at accredited post-secondary institution in the United States. Education USA also provides services to U.S. higher education community to help institution leaders meet their recruitment and campus internalization goals. And Education USA is your official source on U.S. higher education. I'm going to introduce our first presenter for today, Daniel Rivers. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having us today.
Thank you very much. And we have also Emil Chuck. Hi, Emil.
Hi, it's a pleasure to meet with you and everybody else who's on this webinar.
Thank you very much for joining us today. And I'm sure that our students will benefit a lot from what you are going to share now. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll leave it to you, Daniel. You can start.
Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Rivers, Partnerships Director for AM Opportunities. Today, we are going to talk a little bit about the process of either getting into medical school in the United States, doing residency in the United States, or, for some of you who actually have a goal of becoming a doctor and working in the United States, we can talk about that pathway as well. And all three are kind of intertwined. So we're going to start out with sort of the pathway to getting into medical school in the United States. For those of you that are joining our Zoom group, if you could leave your video and sound off. This is being live streamed onto Facebook, and we'll have a chance for questions at the end. With that said, let me just share my screen. So this is all about, medical and clinical education. This webinar is brought to you by Education USA, HPSA, and AM Opportunities, so a joint collaboration here. We will talk a bit about pre-med, medical students, and then graduates, kind of the whole pathway. We'll fit as much information as we can in our short time here together. Hopefully this information is helpful to you. We appreciate your time and attendance. With that said, I'll pass it on to Emil.
Great. Thank you so much, Daniel. And again, well, welcome to this webinar. And we hope that some of the information that we give you is worthwhile. And we look forward to any questions that you have that we could try to present to you. My role in this presentation is to kind of give you sort of the layout of what actually is involved with regards to your initial education and what it takes to get a medical degree in the United States, and thus what the application process is. So I'm going to cover in the next slide a couple of just general basics, because getting into medical school in the United States is very different from most other places in the entire world. One of the things that you need to be aware of is that we do offer, like most other places, a medical degree known as the MD, but we also have another degree that is equivalent that we also offer here in the United States that has some limited that is limited, but you can still practice medicine with a doctor of osteopathic medical degree. Either degree allows you to practice as a physician in the United States, especially following a training period of residency. Now, unlike most of the other places in the United States, you start the process of being trained as a doctor after you complete a bachelor's degree at an accredited US institution. And again, you need to complete that degree and then apply to be entered and admitted into medical school. First of all, the bachelor's degree usually takes about 4 years and could take a little bit longer. And of course, medical education itself is another 4 or so years on top of that. What is expected of you prior to starting your time in medical school is that you take required, or what we call prerequisite courses. And those are expected to be taken and completed with passing grades at a US college or university. So it's really important to understand that, you may have taken courses outside the United States in your home country, but realize that most of those courses will not be credited towards an application to medical school. Finally, the one final thing that is required in order for you to become a practitioner in the United States as a physician is that all graduates from medical school here in the United States must go through a process known as residency. And so this is an additional, what we will call postgraduate or postdoctoral training program that follows your successful completion of medical school. Can take, depending on what you choose to do, you decide a specialty that you want to work in, and that additional training adds another 3 to 7 or so years of training on top of the 4 years or so of undergraduate, the 4 years or so of medical training. So this is a very long pathway, and something that we want to make sure that you're aware of, especially since we don't recruit from the high school level for the most part. We usually start at the undergraduate level. So that's one thing to keep in mind if you want to think about that long journey of training as a physician in the United States. It's much more of a marathon than it is in most other places around the country. So on the next slide, it's even a little bit more stressful. And I don't want to dissuade you, but this is the process that most American citizens go through when it comes to applying to medical school. So you do have to take your prerequisite courses, and you do need to do very well in them. A generally high GPA of mostly A's, some B's, 3.5, 3.6 or so, or higher on a 4-point scale, and we'll explain that later if you need to. That's what normally we see individuals have as their grades or their overall grade point average to be considered for medical school. You also, on top of doing well in courses, you need to also show an overall profile where you really are engaged with the community. And this shows up with your extracurricular activities. So what you do outside of classes is very important. 2 areas that are extremely important include what you do that gives you exposure to what healthcare is like. So we call them shadowing or clinical experiences. And this may involve, you just observing what doctors do in a clinic. And also, you have opportunities where you may be directly involved under supervision to have limited interaction with patients. So you can take histories, or you could sort of register patients before they go into their appointments, as an example, but you can't do any specific procedures in terms of giving them treatments or assisting in treatments. The other thing that's very important is, of course, showing that you really can serve the community and that you really have an inclination to working to alleviate the distress that other people have as a result of their health issues. So community service, especially in a non-clinical setting, is extremely important. So understanding, and being comfortable with working with individuals who are in poor neighborhoods or poor locations, refugees, obviously, as an example, various different sort of opportunities where you really can help people in other areas of their lives, and understand how that can contribute to their own health or their own well-being. So those 2 are the real main issues that I think most people really look very carefully towards, and that you need to have an established good record for your application. So you show that you really do have what it takes to be a servant doctor or a servant leader, as the case may be. Now, the third point on this slide is we do have standardized tests, and our specific standardized test in the United States is called the Medical College Admissions Test, the MCAT. This is a very arduous exam. Needless to say, it's about, I believe it's a computer exam. It takes about 4 to 6 hours, but it's really a long reading test, and it's stressful for most people because it takes a lot of people 100, 200 days to really get an idea of what that test is like. It's unlike any of the exams that you normally get at university, and it really requires some insight into critical thinking and analysis. So I won't go into all the details, but basically one needs to do very well on this exam in order to also be considered for entrance into medical school. Now, those are just the things that you need in order to collect to submit an initial application, as well as what we call secondary applications, which what we do here is we have a common application, which is our primary application, where you can submit essays and a lot of your activities and your portfolio and so forth. Again, we'll go to the details specifically of what they look for, but we also have, as soon as you choose the schools you want to attend, what we call school-specific or secondary applications. Each of those steps costs money, needless to say, and so it's also a very expensive process, as well as a long, enduring, time-consuming process. People start submitting their applications in like June, and then they wait, this is for June, in order for you to enter school about 14, 15 months later. So we're talking about entering into medical school the following July, August, or September. So it's a very long-term process. Again, a marathon, not a sprint, is usually what I like to tell people. And it is a very long-term process that involves interviews. And so you need to go through an interviewing process. If you are invited to an interview by the schools that say you've made an impression on us, we would like to interview you. And so among the schools that you are interested in, they will also want to interview you more virtually nowadays, but we will still have some people that will do on campus or on-site interviews. And you need to go through all of that process in order to ultimately get an offer. Only about 40% of all applicants get some sort of an offer to be admitted to medical school. And among that 40%, maybe half, a little bit over half of those people only get admitted to one school. So again, being able to understand this process is something that we do very much with our community over with the Health Professional Student Association. Let's see what the next slide is, just to make sure. I think I have one more to go. Yes, one other thing to also realize is, as I mentioned, there's 2 different degrees that you can get your medical degree in the United States. So I mentioned that application process. Well, there's 3 different ways of applying, 3 different applications themselves